Indigenous, brown, women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies. Hey, what's up? And welcome to the Trek Table, your Friday weekly podcast holding Trek space, as they just said, for Black, Indigenous, brown, women of color, queer or otherwise, and our allies. We are so happy to see you here. What's up to all our friends in the Geekish Network chat? Hi, Sci-Fi Queen. So great to see you. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Dela, and today I'm holding Trek space for the giant, wonderful space library.
I am your co-host, Claudia, and today I'm holding Trek space for a rhythm section.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Courtney, and today I'm holding Trek space for the weekend and chatting with friends about space.
Yes. We invite folks in the chat. What are you holding Trek space for today as you log in with us? We want to welcome everybody to the Trek Table. We like to start with acknowledging that our teams for the Trek Table are on the unceded land of the Tongva, Chumash, Quiche, Ohlone, and Puyallup peoples. We're grateful to the indigenous stewards of these lands, the ancestors who've come before and those who are here now, and we hold space for those who have yet to come. We invite our listeners and viewers to be an acknowledgement of the lands that you are on. Go ahead and take a breath.
All of our music for the Trek Table is lovingly supported by our favorite Chicanics rock band, Quetzal. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Gracias to Quetzal. Welcome, everybody. Episode 54 of the Trek Table. I continue to be in awe that we've made so many episodes. Thank you for showing up for this conversation with women of color as we dive deep head first into the latest and greatest episode 508, The Labyrinth, for Star Trek Discovery. If you are looking for unspoiled disco experience, we love you. We invite you to pause, go watch, then come back, because we're about to spoil all the things. Spoiler zone is in full effect, like blessing to all the land. We're going to talk about spoilers for not just this episode 508. We're going to talk about all of season 5, and knowing this table assembled, we're going to probably spoil any Star Trek any of us have ever watched. So lovingly to you, expanding and welcoming all of the Star Trek knowledge at the Trek Table assembled in our chat and in the ether.
We are so glad that you are joining this Black, Indigenous, women of color Trek conversation. Hello and welcome. So that we can build together, we would love to know more about you. How are you entering this conversation as a Star Trek fan? Are you Star Trek curious? Are you a newbie? Are you an OG Trekkie? Do you come from a Star Trekking family? Are you a Star Trek fam? Are you a Trek zaddy? Trek baby? Let us know in the chat.
Yes, yes. And on today's episode of Trek Table, episode 54, as we dive deep into Star Trek Discovery, episode 508, Labyrinth, written by Lauren Wilkinson and Eric J. Robbins, and directed by Emmanuel Osei Kufor. I want to say welcome back to our amazing co-hosts, the Trek Table Assembled. Thank you, Claudia and Courtney, for joining us today. We're going to take you through this episode together. We're going to play a little bit of popcorn recap, see if we can finally recap this plot in 2.5 minutes. Claudia's got some great Trek Table questions for us today. I'm going to lead us through disco design, and then we'll round that bend and jump into thematics. We've got a great signal boost for you today. We always list our final thoughts before we close, and we always end in gratitude. We want to welcome everybody assembled here in the Geekish Network chat. Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello. We also want to say again, welcome to our Trek Table Assembled. And so we like to start a little bit with the check-in. So inviting folks in the chat to go ahead and check in, as well as our panel assembled. We're going to ask you to tell us your name, your pronouns, your access check-in, and how you identify as a Star Trek fan. Courtney, we missed you last week. So happy to have you back. I know you're doing a lot of binge-worthy and Geekish Network thangy things. So all the wisdom, welcome back. I'm curious, can you go ahead and check in?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back here at Trek Table. My pronouns are she, her. My access needs, I am sitting here in a light pink and hot pink jacket with stripes and a matching we're all a little mad here hat that also has pink stripes. I am, my Star Trek fandom. I identify as celestially open because I receive all the sci-fi fandoms and I make space for every single one. Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, you know, all of them, all the ones that you know are out there.
Get it. I love it. Make it just space for all the celestials. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Welcome, Courtney. So glad to have you in all of the pink and all of the things. So excited. I also want to welcome back to the Trek Table, Claudia. So great to have you. We've been on this journey together for a long time, talking about Star Trek Discovery. I wonder if you want to go ahead and check in and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hey, hello there, everybody. I'm Claudia. They, theirs. You can also use she, hers for my gender pronouns. Visual description. I'm an African-American woman with a big old afro sitting on the deck of the original Enterprise. I think I'm where Spock usually is. My access check-in is that I've got some allergies going on, so you might see me pull a tissue out of some mysterious place in this entire setup I have here on the Star Trek deck. And I come from a generational Star Trek loving family, but I'm also poly sci-fi fantasy. I love it all. Hey, Dayla, how about you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. What's up, everybody? I'm Dayla. My pronouns are she, he, they, and Dayla. Visually, I'm a mixed Filipinx person with, I'm wearing a pink shirt and a blue or black vest. I'm sitting in front of some Japanese American art. I'm not in my house today, but I'm in my homie's house, so I'm excited to be here. I identify as a Trek fan for sure. I am a minutia loving Trek head. Sometimes I find the thing and I can't stop. I have to kind of go down the little rabbit holes. But I do identify as poly sci-fi and poly celestial, similar to Courtney. I love all the stars. The Star Trek, the Star Wars, Gate, Battlestar, Galactica, Firefly, Farscape. And I will just say I started the show because I really fell in love with disco. I am so in a primary science fiction relationship right now with Star Trek Discovery, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Well, now this brings us to our final business before we jump into our discussion. We want to name the Trek Table Agreements.
Yes, yes. Welcome all who enter. Whether you're a newbie or raised in a Star Trekking family, welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or as part of your self-care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek space.
This is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, femmes of color to be fan, geek, nerd, and explore the vastness of the Star Trek multiverse.
Trek Table is also a place for allies to come and engage and explore as well. It's an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we are all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand that we're going to disagree, and that's actually part of the fun, but there's enough strife going on out there in the world, so let's keep our phasers on stun.
Stun. I know this is not a phaser, but stun. Yes, so great. I want to invite us all here at the table, as well as our folks in the chat. Let's just go ahead and breathe in those agreements. Go ahead and take your breath. And exhale.
And that brings us to our first Trek Table question, which is posed to all of us assembled here in the podcast and to all y'all out there in the chat. Please respond in the YouTube chat. This last season of Discovery is giving us so many references to things. I'm just wondering, in this episode, what did this episode remind you of from previous Star Treks? And you know how I am. I might accidentally end up referencing a Star Wars or some other thing as well. There's just so many amazing references. So yeah, what did this show remind you of? Welcome back. I am here with Trek Table question number 1. What are some things in this episode that reminded you of other things from other Star Treks or even other science fiction universes? It's a broad question, my friends, but I thought it might make for a fun answer. So yeah, I'm wondering, and I'll kick us off, right? So y'all, you let me know if I'm tripping, but I swear that the Breen started off as a Star Wars reference. I think that they were referencing the bounty hunter. What's his name? Star Wars bounty hunter. Y'all.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Thank you. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Boba Fett. He was reminding me hardcore of Boba Fett and like old school Boba Fett, right? Like when we first saw him, like not from the Boba Fett TV show that we recently got. So yeah, that was like just like the way the Breen look and their style and their way of speaking. I don't know. What's something that was a reference or a reminder for you?
I can go next. So as you say that with the Breen, I feel like we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but the zipper mouth feels very like BDSM, like leather daddy, like all the things there, leather mommy, you know, all those things.
Oh yeah.
I would say that I so jumped there. I thought that Hyrel the librarian was actually a Klingon, and I discovered in some of the prep for this week that she's actually an Nephrosian. So it's a brand new alien. They must be cousins with the Klingons. I don't know, but so I kind of went to Klingon, and I just thought it was super awesome that the Klingon was the head librarian for this library. So it just kind of took me there. And it reminded me a bunch of stuff. So I'll hold it a little, but that's where I'm going to
go. Well, you just saying that right now reminded me of what was it? I guess Disco season 2 when they went back to the Klingon special place. It wasn't a library, but where Pike had to go and get the time crystals. Yeah. It did. It really that wasn't what I was gonna say, but you just saying that, like, because that was a Klingon, like,
Warith,
gatekeeper. It was the son of
Laurel
and
not Kalish, but he was the other dude. Ash Tyler was his human.
Ash Tyler was his human name. But he
had a Klingon identity, right? Yeah,
he did have a Klingon identity. I can't think of what it was though. Because they made fun of him because he looked different. because his skin tone was different than other Klingons.
Mhm.
But originally what I was going to say before I went down that rabbit hole was it reminded me of the journey that I think it was Tilly and Stamets when they went in that mushroom land and found like Culber's essence was still there.
Yeah.
So that's what when she slipped into her dream world, that's what that reminded me of.
Ooh, interesting. I was thinking it reminded me of that episode where Picard was like, and then like Will Riker catches him ever so gently and lets him down real soft, and then they're like, oh, we can't turn it off because it's gonna make him freak out. And then he had an entire life where he learned how to play the flute. And I am so jealous. I want to go and learn how to play the flute in just a few hours. It's a technology that they did not continue to talk about in Star Trek, and I want to know why. And that was Star Trek Table Question. That was our Trek Table Question number 1.
Welcome back. And with that song Matanzas by our favorite band Quetzal, we know that it is time for popcorn recap, disco recap. We like to play this game. Before we do though, thanks to the friends in the chat, Voke is the name of Ash Tyler's Klingon self. Yes, thank you, Sci-Fi Queens. Oh, what's up to everybody in the chat? Like really active chat today. What's up, Paul?
Thanks for coming through.
Great to see you for sure. Sci-Fi Queens, what's up? So really happy. Thank you. This is, Trek Table is about the interaction. So we're here. All right. This is the one part of the show though where we try to tell you chunklets of plot in 2.5 minutes, just so we can recap the major storylines from this week's episode. And we were just talking about in the prep how many episodes we've been watching and trying to just make sure we're talking about the episode this week and not breaking the embargo on the last 2 episodes that we've received. So just holding that, knowing that none of us have seen it. Today though, talking about our second to last episode, right? Third to last episode of season 5, episode 508 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled Labyrinth. So we're going to play this little game. Rodney's going to put up 2.5 minutes. We're going to see if we get there. Friends in the chat, feel free to tell us what we forgot. We love this game. All right, everybody, let's take a breath. And exhale. Rodney, we're in your hands. Go.
Okay. So first, we started Locke's funeral on the Breen ship. Now, Maul is being guarded, and she is looking on lovingly at the remains of her love. And the Primarch says, he's going to get revenge. Maul says, hey, I just want y'all to know, look, Locke can come back to life and restore the Scion. Primarch is really unhappy about that. She put this idea in the soldiers' heads.
Oh, and then on Discovery, they're getting directions from the archive, or AKA the Eternal Gallery, from this lady named Hyrel. She's like the head librarian lady, and they're gonna have to fly through these dangerous Badlands, and the ship gets really banged up, but they make it through.
Meanwhile, Book and Michael have a conversation about things that have happened previously, and he says he apologizes to Michael for being upset that they sent Maul to the Breen, and she's like, I hear you, I appreciate you, I'm still gonna stand by my decision, and I care about you.
Okay, so Maul, I forgot to mention, Maul is like basically under Breen arrest, but she requests to be freed and allowed to like lead an attack on Discovery to get the clues. And the Primarch is like, what you doing? No, I'm going to attack the archive.
And then Hyrel, she's inviting Book to join Michael and them in the archive because she wants to share a cutting from this living tree from the planet Quajon, because last season his planet was completely destroyed. So this is a very emotional moment.
And then after they come back from Books getting the gift of the eternal root, they find Michael passed out on the floor. They call in Dr. Culber and Raynar, and they test her and they say, we can't turn off the signal. She's in some kind of program. If we turn it off, she might die. And Raynar's like, all right, let's go and try to figure out how to save her.
Okay, so the Breen track them to the archive, and Hyrel tells them, hey, yo, watch your tone, since, these are priceless Breen artifacts here also, so we gotta be, like, respectful. The Primarch then threatens Hyrel to attack the archive. He's like, hey, yo, we trying to get in here. You need to open this door and let us in. She was like, no, everybody gets to be in here, and there's already somebody here. Locke said, Breen revere their history. Maul comments to his lieutenant that the Primarch doesn't care about Breen culture or his people, only to his personal power.
Ooh, and then Michael's like fully up in her head. Like, you think she's up in her head all the time, but this time she really is. And she's speaking with this computer program that looks like book, which is a trip. And then she's trying to figure out like what the clues are, but the lights are getting darker because if she doesn't pass this test, she's gonna die. Oh, come on.
We did so good. We got
You're so good.
Like
So
almost
close.
halfway through the episode.
Come on.
All right. So
So
we're gonna
close.
finish this out. Thanks, friends, for letting us finish. All right. So meanwhile, as they're trying to figure out how to help Michael pass this test and support her, Discovery realizes the Breen is on their way. So Commander Reese is like, well, we better hide while they're here. We got to give them as much time as we can. He's listening to Raynar. And so they hide in the plasma storm, and the bridge crew, and they're all brave, and they're flying, and they're trying to hold on to the things as we get some of the little mini explosions in the bridge, right? That happened. And Commander Reese is making good choices with Tilly by his side. It's like, oh, back in the day.
Now, Raynar and Book research, but it's not working. They cannot find anything. The Breen attack they're here. They enter the archive and they get ready. They are like weapons out, phasers are not on stun, ready to get it in, right? The Breen attack the archive. Cobra is trying to protect Michael's body. Raynar and Book fight Breen inside the archive, and Book gets shot.
And then over on the ship, Adira and Stamets and no, it's not Tilly. What's her name? Jet Reno. They do a science thing with positron dreams and talking at the same time, and then they disrupt the Breen tunnel.
That's right. The Breen are putting that tunnel. In the end, the test is passed because Michael is honest with herself about what she's most insecure about. So she's told where to find the Go Physical. The other clue, just break the glass or break the stone, and that it's going to give them the final hint at the progenitor's clue.
Now, Primarch Rune, listen, he is done with everybody. He threatens to destroy the entire archive if Discovery does not share the entire set of clues with them. Just give them all to me. Michael makes him swear a Targoon to promise to spare the archive in exchange for the clues.
And so then Michael, she orders them, they're going to warp away as they're being attacked by the Breen, and they're going to do a thing. So they jump simultaneously and vent, and so it look like they're destroyed, but they aren't really. But they were damaged a little bit. So Discovery is 22 light years away from like the final clue, and the ship's a little bit damaged, but Michael's not worried because she learned a secret that's going to help them get through later.
Yes, and Primarch Rune is like, I don't really care about all this stuff. I didn't get what I wanted. So he orders the Breen to blow up the archive anyway. Oh my gosh. And then Maul confronts Rune and says that this will endanger the crew. She gets the lieutenant to protect her. She kills Rune, and she is like the wife of Locke, and she claims her power. Long may he reign.
Long may he reign.
Even though he's dead right now, but
right,
he's gonna come back to life.
I kind of want to come back and say, long may she reign till he wakes up.
For sure.
Ooh.
And yes. And even with all of that, that was Popcorn Recap. All right, and we are back with Discovery Design. We had a little chance to kind of revisit the plot of this week's episode. We've seen some really interesting design elements, and there's like a couple of main categories that I think we can talk about. That opening shot was the funeral. We get to see what the Breen funeral process is like. What is the place of the widow? How much time? And I'm just curious, Claudia, thoughts about this Breen funeral and kind of just the epicness of it and kind of what we saw?
It was giving music video from the early 2000s, like the way the camera swept in. Everybody's doing choreography with those light sticks. Kind of low-key reminded me of the pain sticks that Worf was really into. And then they're all in black leather. So it's like, it's super BDSM. They're doing choreography. I was ready for a song number. I was ready for it. It had so much pomp and circumstance. You literally had Locke's body lying out, fully like in this beautiful cape with like a symbol on it, and then smoke. There's smoke effects around him. He's so hot, he's smoking. It was a ridiculous funeral. I like that the Breen are into production elements. I like it. They like a show, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Different from humans in so many ways, and yet not, maybe. I'm curious, Courtney, for you, Breen funeral, is that something interesting to you, or do you want to jump into the library with us? Like that, we spent so much of this episode in the library trying to get there. Once we're there, I'm kind of moving around it. I'm curious your thoughts about the design that we saw in this week's episode.
So the design for me, like you guys already talked about the Breen costuming. For me, it was Hyrel's dress.
Mm.
I mean, the or robe, however you choose to acknowledge it. I thought Hyrel was fantastic. First of all, I thought that it was a great introduction of a new character. She was classy and funny and sassy and just all things like knowledgeable, and yet still very emotionally impactful when she was talking to Book about Quajon. I just thought that was such an incredible character, and I kind of am a little bit sad that this is someone that's only stuck in the archive. I would really like to know more about these Afronesians. So that was probably the most interesting thing to me. In terms of the library, I thought the depth of the library was really cool, like the way that they created the stacks and what have you. I did think it was a little, I would like to know what you all thought about the way Michael had to like get through it with like regular, like, I don't know, baseball paint, like how you create a baseball diamond. I was like, and you're using too much, friend.
I did notice, I was like, wow, you're pouring that sand pretty hard. Like that bucket's not that big. Is it autofilling? Like,
I mean,
what?
Exactly.
Also, like, I don't remember what it's called, but like literally she was using the card catalog. I'm like, this is the space future. You have a card catalog? I know it was up in her brain though. We know it was up in her brain because they had Dutch angles, all these like wild Dutch angles and fisheye lenses to let you know. So maybe the card catalog was just in her brain. It wasn't actually please let me know. What do you think?
I had an idea. I don't know exactly what it was, but my idea is that was because it was in her mind, that was part of her mind's library. That was actually an artifact. I saw that as an artifact.
The other artifact that I liked that was in her brain was Book's entire outfit. Because like you were saying that how you liked Hyrel's dress. I loved Hyrel's dress. Like if I'm ever gonna cosplay, I'm like, I might have to cosplay with that outfit. It's so cute. But like also Book in that outfit was giving glam rock. He was giving like there was like I loved it.
And I did love the banter. This is more thematics than design, but I did like the banter where she was like, oh, I should have remembered Tilly. And then later he was like, oh, Tilly would have been a problem too. And then it just set me on an imagining Tilly in that role. And so I was really glad that it's Book. Yeah, I thought it was awesome that that he is the person that she brought to mind as she tried to go through the labyrinth in her own mind. And so that was just really powerful. And then just to watch her kind of talk it through and to hear, every single planet we've come to, every single clue has had a test. And so I love that, like last episode, Culber's like, wait, there's a test. This is a test, right? Was that last episode or this episode? So they're all starting to realize, oh, we have to do this test. Like we had to take, Burnham and Tilly had to take those thirst pills, and then they had to do the marathon up the mountain. So I'm just really appreciating that we finally got to see this place that has been protected by the Federation for so many generations, and that there is history in this place for all of the kind of original species that we know in the Federation. And so I'm just curious, like the loss of the space library, because it blew up, right? The whole thing.
No, it didn't. No? They saved it. They saved the archive. Yeah. Oh,
that was the whole reason she gave them. Yeah, that was the whole reason she gave them the clues, is to save the library. And then Maul saved when she killed Primarch, when they killed Primarch, and they stopped the explosion because there were Breen artifacts on there as well.
And like Maul is messy. Maul be so messy, but she saved the space library. So I'm back. I'm low key on Team Maul just a little bit, which is so messy. I will say this also belongs possibly in the thematic section, but the library itself, it had me thinking about libraries, museums, archives, like all of these spaces. And in our society, they're always very colonial. So I was excited about a space library. I love a library. For me, libraries are like technology. Like back in the day, before you had the internet, you had to walk your body to the place where they had the books, and you had to check one of those books out to get the knowledge. I'm wishing that this space library hadn't felt like it was using so many dark wood tones. It was giving very English library. It was giving very Western library aesthetics. And I was like, oh, libraries can look a lot of different ways. This one is giving me a very American values looking kind of library. And I'm like, you're in the future in outer space. You could do something different. That's just that. I guess I had a Star Trek complaint. Sorry,
Well,
Star Trek.
I would have liked to have seen them use the card. They didn't use the card.
right.
They didn't use it. It's like, yeah, this is your card to get in, but no, they didn't show it to anybody. They didn't they didn't use it.
I think
You're right.
they beamed it at the top of the as part of the way to get to her Hyrel to say
Oh.
hello.
That
There was
real quick.
there was an exposition line like, oh,
Okay.
we already transported the library card. And
okay.
now she's going to talk to us. And now she's like, hi, I'm going to give you my speech and welcome. And they're like, yeah, we're busy, right? Like we're trying to navigate the roughness. So, oh, I'm so glad they didn't die. I don't know why. Yeah. You know, when you watch an episode and then you go away.
Yeah.
I appreciate in the chat some folks, sci-fi queens are talking about loving the card catalog as well. Yeah, I do agree, Claudia. I think there was definitely, I felt like we were in Ivy League college library.
Art. Yeah.
At least that's my impression from the non-Ivy League college that I went to, that continued to say we were the Ivy League college of the Pacific Northwest. Love to my school. But yeah, just really having that moment of watching her go in the library and having to figure out, like, it just reminded me of some of the best days in the library, trying to figure out, what am I going to write in my paper? What am I going to write? You know, okay, where am I going to find this research? And so I did kind of appreciate that she wasn't on a desolate planet trying to learn about herself, but she was surrounded as a xenoanthropologist with all of this interesting knowledge. So yeah, so I just, shouts out to the libraries and librarians. Just really, I feel like there's an amazing librarian out of Oakland, Michael, who's getting a lot of love right now and does amazing posts about library friends. And
Oh yeah, Michael. I love Michael. I follow Michael on TikTok.
For sure. I follow Michael on Insta, and I just, and knowing librarians in my life and friends who want to be librarians, I really appreciate people, all of the different people involved in keeping knowledge, right? And so yeah, it just kind of gave all those vibes. Any other design pieces?
It's not a design piece, but I appreciated that they could talk in this library. A lot of times you go to a library and they tell you, shh. Now, there are times when I would go to a library because I want that quiet and I don't want anyone to talk to me. But I do appreciate that in this library, you get your own little room. You can talk as loud as you want to.
There's sonic privacy. It's very,
yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just curious, like, at a design level on the maintenance of this eternal library, just like, when did they get to go pick up programmable like, how do they get their upgrades? Like, is there a crew whose job is to go to this traveling library to give them programmable matter upgrades and like all these other things? So the last thing I want to say about design, which I think will kind of lead us once we get into thematics, is just the way in which there was deep reverence for Book's loss and the loss of the Kwejan, and the way in which she was just like, of course you can, just that there was no it just felt like such a, this is totally thematically, but it was just such a clear conversation around the artifacts that belong to the people, belong to those people. And you don't get to keep it in your library for the knowledge of others, but like to honor where this knowledge came from, and that he was the last surviving being of this community. And just, once he opened the box and he saw the root, I was like, oh my gosh, that's how he goes when he's grieving. He's supposed to go back and touch the root, and he couldn't do all this grieving because everything was gone. But now I'm just, I hope that he gets to touch it. He had to put it away because Michael was in crisis. So I'm just, I'm really happy that we also got to have that moment. Yes.
Did anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm wondering if the progenitor technology will be able to be used with the root. Will Book be able to bring back a piece of his planet? Sorry, I literally just had that light bulb moment because you kept talking about design elements. I love it. Sorry, I was interrupting you, Courtney. What were you
Wow,
about
that
to
was
say?
no, that was a great pickup. I was going to say, did anybody else notice that Hyrel said, as you are one of the last Quajans? She didn't say he was the last. She said one of, which makes me think that she knows of at least, like another Quajan somewhere, somebody got, you know what I mean? But I like that observation, and I think you might be onto something about them bringing Quajan back.
All right, chat. We're curious about it. Do you think they're about to use the root to bring back a portion of Quajan? This is the question we're thinking about. But for now, that is Trek Table disco design.
Woo! I love disco design. And this brings us to our final Trek Table question of this episode. Speaking of libraries, I'm just wondering, what other cool libraries do you want to talk about? We were chatting about, like, I was going to ask you about space libraries. I'll be honest. I was like, talk to me about fictional libraries, your favorite fictional libraries. But then we started to talk about real libraries that we enjoyed. So it's going to be dealer's choice out in the audience. Go shout out your favorite real life library or fictional library. And I'm going to be asking y'all here on the podcast to talk to me in depth about a fictional library you love. Welcome back for Trek Table question number 2. What's your favorite fictional library or even a real life library? We're going to start with the fictional libraries here on the podcast. I'm going to start with you, Courtney. What's a fictional library that you have enjoyed?
Well, okay. So the one I really want to say technically is a series that has not aired yet. It's still in pilot stage, but I've read all the books, and it's from A Court of Thorn and Roses. It's an incredible library that that is introduced in the series. There's lots of levels and layers to it, and include an inhabitants of like other species and creatures, and that's all I'm gonna say. But since there's one that has aired, the Sandman Library, because I love that we go to Dream's library, and I love that that's where all of his like imagery and things that he creates there with his number one, whose name I'm forgetting right now, but that is probably my number one library right now.
Oh, and I love how you're making me think about, like in fiction, libraries can be magic libraries that hold not only magical creatures, but like they can hold concepts. Oh, that's a good library. That's a really good library that you mentioned.
Yes.
Dela, what is a library, a fictional library that you want to do a shout out to?
I feel bad that this is the first one that came to mind, because I'm like, I know there's like libraries I love. But I would say the Hogwarts library. I particularly like. I also realized that I forget the room that they go into with all of the experience. I'm going to use all the
room of requirement.
Yeah. Is it the room of requirement where they have all the like memory balls and then the kids are fighting?
That's a different room.
No, that's a different room.
No, the room of requirement is with the cupboard.
Where the Pensieve, that's Dumbledore's office, where he has all the bubbles and the
Nah.
Oh.
She's talking about,
you're talking about the Remember-Alls.
No, I'm not talking about the Remember-Alls, but those are cool too. I'm thinking about in one of the battles where the young people end up in the room where Harry's trying to find the
where they have like a big battle.
Yes, and like Malfoy and all of the Dark Lords are there, and they're all chasing them, and then everything falls down around them. Yeah, I was like,
and that's not the room of requirement.
No,
I know
different
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think about it.
Yeah.
But I see why this is reminding you of that, though. Again, I am fascinated. I'm realizing that I have collapsed a bunch of ideas together. Libraries, archives, spaces that contain big, important ideas. They're awesome in fiction. I love it so much. I'm now feeling real boring and prosaic because I thought of Sunnydale. I thought of the Scoobies. Now they get, because like, as what I love about that library is that it's a tiny little library because it's a high school library that they are in, but somehow it's magically full of every book you could ever need, which is awesome. Now I want to give us just a quick round. I see that folks in the audience have been responding. Nice. What's a real life library or bookstore? Library or bookstore? Because we could have chatted out some fictional bookstores too. This could be an entire episode, everybody. So yeah, what's a real life library or bookstore you want to give a shout out to?
Do you want to go first, Courtney? You want me to go?
Sure. First, I remember the name of the librarian, which is Lucianne in The Sandman.
Nice.
And I just checked with my resident Harry Potter expert, my 10-year-old niece, and she said it is the room of requirement where Malfoy and then where they battle.
Okay.
She confirmed it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, 10-year-old expert.
Yes, my expert. And my favorite library, the Lincoln Center Library in New York. That is my favorite library. It has a really special place for me because when I lived in New York and I was a struggling artist, didn't have any money to go anywhere, the one place I could go for free was the Lincoln Center Library, and you could watch all the plays. Every single Broadway play that was there, you could watch it and it was free. And the last bookshop here in Los Angeles.
Ooh, the last bookshop. I have so many beautiful memories of sitting around the Lincoln Center Library watching plays and like feeling like I was time traveling, because I was seeing stuff from the old. Oh, that's so cool. How about you, Dayla? Are there any libraries or bookstores that come to mind?
I mean, definitely. So I will say, I was talking about my undergrad. I would say the library at the University of Puget Sound, because I spent a lot of time there. And I realized like in the stacks of that library, I discovered parts of myself and like literally was feeling like an isolated student of color. I had friends who were also of color, but it was a really hard adjustment my first year. And I found this book called Filipinos, the Forgotten Asian Americans by Fred Cordova. And as I flipped through the book, I found this particular page where a Filipino cannery worker and farm worker, there was a photo and it said, "I earned enough this summer in the cannery so that I could go back to the College of Puget Sound." And I was like, wow, somebody like me, so I just had this moment of like, I found myself in the pages of a book in a library, and I could feel the tears right now. So I would definitely just say that. And then locally, LA County Library, for LA County residents, they have a 3D printer.
Wait, no. All right, I'm gonna go visit you in LA. Girl, come on.
I haven't been able to go see it yet, but I know for sure there was a tour that a cohort I belong to went on, and they actually have a 3D printer. And I think there's a way to sign up as a LA County resident to be able to print something on a 3D printer. So those are my two favorite.
So cool.
That is amazing. I did not know that.
We have in the audience a shout out for a small bookstore in the 34th train station in New York City. And that makes me want to go to New York to go to that specific bookstore. I want to go to that bookstore.
Where do they say?
They sit on the 34th train station in New York, which is why I'm like, go to 34th Street, the train station. Go to the bookstore in the train station. Go there. Or you can also go to Marcus Books in Oakland. Shout out to Marcus Books. I'm a big fan of Powell's Books in Portland. I have spent many an hour just like, y'all, I'm this person. I will post up in your bookstore. I won't buy one book, just sit there on a stool, read for hours. I love a bookstore. I truly do. Y'all, this conversation was so delightful. Thank you so much for responding. Oh wait, do we have more?
No, can I just say one more thing to everybody who does, just like the go-to bookstores that are like your local Barnes and Noble, like go there, because I go to like there's Bookstar, in Studio City, that I'll just go and walk around. If I don't have anything to do, I'll just go and walk around. I don't need to buy a book. I just love being in the presence of knowledge.
Mhm.
Also,
Skylight
just
books.
Yeah,
like
just
not
go.
only shout out to the small bookstores, shout out to our library, shout out to our
Shout out to
public
the
libraries.
libraries. Yeah.
Like y'all, that green dude, he deserved to get shot. I'm Team Mall now. I'm fully Team Mall because he was about to destroy the entire space library. That's messed up, y'all. So that's why I'm Team Mall. I love a library. Who knew that I was going to be like, yay, violence? So we got to protect our public libraries. Y'all, that was Trek Table question number 2.
Awesome. And with that, we're at thematics already. We got a chance to really dig into some Trek Table questions. We got a chance to dig into some design. We're talking about libraries and reading. The chat is still going, talking about some really great bookstores and places to go. We'll definitely post those in the show notes as well. You know, thematics, we usually like to braid stuff together. We started to talk a little bit in design because we were seeing the connection between design and some of these thematic elements. And Claudia, I know we were talking about libraries and museums and the connection to colonialism and heritage. This episode also just, I feel like as we start to wind down with the series, it felt like another amazing moment to witness Burnham kind of knowing herself, using her analytical process to try to, you know, I always like watching a character who follows a logic and helps us kind of map ways that we might also get ourselves out of trouble or get ourselves out of a situation, you know. And I think about that, like I do from my early likings of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, and just kind of that analytical brain to watching Michael kind of continue to break down and know thyself. And then just these questions of like, how do we know that we're worthy for this technology that is going to change lives? And it makes me think about contemporary conversations around AI and the way in which AI and like from chat GPT to like all these new kind of iterations of like, I respect that work. I'm also really hesitant and tentative about propelling us into this future because so much of discovery has been about the danger of AI, right? So I just think about these moments of like, how do we know what we know, and how are we worthy? How do we become worthy of holding on to this knowledge and like being present, like, and just really, you know, not to go all the way there, but I will, just like, yeah, who gets to hold the button that could potentially end our world? And that's what this progenitor tech feels like. We're seeing the battle of why Maul wants it, and she wants to bring back her loved one. And we were all, you know, we're all thinking about, oh, could we get part of Quajon back? And so both the good part of this advanced technology and the places where we have to be thoughtful and tentative about it, and like how, yeah, just this leap, and like, you know, there's just so much. I realize I'm like verklempt in all the thoughts of it. So that's kind of my opening thoughts about this episode thematically and kind of what we're getting. And then just, yeah, the fact that Tyrell thinks that by saying to the Breen, we have some of your sacred stuff here, don't trip. You will be, you know, there will be consequences. And just watching her use that as the shield to the potential violence from this particular individual from the Breen, right? So lots of different things going on in this episode. Claudia, I'm gonna come to you next. Other thoughts thematically about what you were absorbing in this episode beyond the like colonial and the library moment?
Yeah, well, you've said a couple of things in this conversation that have made me think about, first of all, right relationship. Like there's the alien, I can't remember her name. It's like princess, and it's a lot of syllables. And she is a alien. She's fully, yeah, Poe. Thank you. She's fully tatted up, and she is in charge. Like she's a sister with the planet, and like she has a relationship with the planet's heart. And like that's a technology is fine in the right hands, which is why control was a bad idea, and why Discovery can have a sentient AI system on it, and it's fine, right? Is the technology in the right hands? Is it in right relationship with the people and the universe? I'm thinking about, we saw what happens. We saw the horrible dark future that happens if the Breen get their hands on this technology exclusively, right? And in this episode, we also got to find out that even the Breen, who have been shown to us to be like the big bad of the season, even they love their past, revere and honor things about their culture, and that's important. So I am thinking about the Prime Directive though, and like, because you mentioned episode, well, you made me think about other Star Trek episodes where where they made the crew pass a test before they could have access to them, like even like the Q were like, oh, you got to pass these tests before we let you level up, right? And I go, what are all of these clues? They're little tiny tests where they're testing whoever's going to get to this progenitor technology because they know it's so dangerous. So I don't like the Prime Directive. I think it's a little patronizing, and yet I don't know. Sometimes you got to test. So anyway, that's what came up for me just now in this moment.
Courtney, I heard your I'm curious thoughts you're having about this episode, kind of as we zoom out and think about big things.
Well, I had a couple of really strong thoughts that came to mind when both of you were talking. And the first one is kind of like connection in a way, because we always here at Trek Table, we talk about like holding space. And yet the library is a place that holds space for knowledge and for everybody to come and experience and share that space. And so thematically, I really felt like this concept of shared space, as well as like the relationship to self. And then that is something that Michael's journey has been something that everybody on the crew has been following during the course of this season. And it's really about them getting right with themselves as we're closing out the series, you know? And so like, even Maul is on her journey of what she thinks she's doing is right, you know, is like getting right with like bringing back her lost love because she has lost so much. But it really comes down to learning yourself in order to know what ultimately is right. That's why they had to challenge Michael in order to know, are you the right person to be trusted? You know what I mean? So it's like really understanding, in order to understand yourself, you have to hold space with yourself in order to understand your truth. And that has literally cleared the path for Michael for her entire journey, which is like a Watson and Sherlock. This entire thing has been like this treasure hunt, you know? So it's really about like continuing this journey through space as they're looking to hold space for the progenitor's tech and have it safely kept. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are. So I got so many things.
And as you said that, that makes me think about the journey that Stamets is on right now and how we know Discovery is the only mycelial, you know, powered super drive and or jump drive, and like, and just kind of our questions about how, you know, we've seen the short trek where we see is it Aldous Hodge and Zora have their little moment, right? So, you know, as we barrel towards the questions that I feel like I, as a Star Trek nerd, like, okay, how are we going to end it, and how are we going to leave it, and how are we going to make that thing make sense? Like, I trust that the showrunners and writers are plotting all that against all the eternal timelines. But it does make me think about the tech that is the mycelial network, and the ways in which in previous seasons of Discovery, we had to protect the tech of Discovery itself, right? And that even in that, you know, and that part of the reason they're trying to also stop jumping is it's damaging the natural environment of the mycelial network. And we heard that once Culber was trying to be recovered, and like the way in which the decay that's operating, because, you know, the way that the jump drive works, it alters the mycelial network and that place of being. And so yeah, I just feel like Discovery is asking us all the time to think about the complexity of like what we know and the bounds of what we know, and then who do we think about as we're thinking about making these decisions along our own moral compass and who is right. And Claudia, as you were talking about the queue, it made me think about that too. Like, who gets to decide what, the people with the most power decide what the moral guide is, right? And so just all of these questions. Yeah, people in the chat, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's part of what was messing me up about the entire idea of the library, because I love it. And also it made me think these really like big, gigantic, concerning thoughts. Who chooses what the archive is? And it's strange. I didn't have these complex feelings about the seed library. I love the idea of the seed library. That was a gorgeous concept that was introduced to us last season. This time I saw this and I first thought, I want to work at this archive. I want to be at the Eternal Gallery. That's the best job in all of the universe. But then, like, is it colonialist? Is it like the Metropolitan Museum? I guess not, because she offers to give the tree back to Book and says, this is yours. This belongs to you. You can come back and tell us. So possibly this future library was more woke than I'm giving it points for.
For sure. And it did, as you were saying that, remind me of the Maester's library in Game of Thrones world, and how you had to go be a Maester in order to actually access all of the ancient, right? And just, and so I'm just, I invite folks to think about, like, I don't know, does anyone ever, I've been thoughtful about, okay, all these digital photos I'm taking, like, where are they landing? They're not going to be a physical they're not necessarily going to be a physical scrapbook that someone could happen upon and like learn about these times. So I've just been thinking about also, like, what are we leaving behind in these digital, like, I have stuff in digital drives that we no longer, like floppy disks, we don't use anymore, like the small hard drive disks that we used to put in, or zip drives, like all the ways in which technology, like, where does our knowledge go if we had put it on that tech? And so how do we, so it spins me out in that way. And it also reminds me, I'm curious in this library what they're doing for oral based cultures and practices, like the way in which Hawaiians pass on history and context and culture through dance and music. Like it's a whole, 3D, 4D experience. It's not just the 2D of the printed page. And so if I were to also say, the one thing I wish I'd seen is, like, what about the oral traditions, and how did those cultures get their history mapped or archived in this eternal archive?
That's why I love Trek Table. Thank you. This was the exact exchange and conversation I was desiring to have.
I appreciate you. Other thoughts, other things, fun things that we're seeing in this episode thematically. Courtney, I know that you've also been able to talk with us about Burnham's journey and being able to see her as a captain. I'm just curious how you're feeling about, I'm just gonna ask y'all, how are you feeling about Burnham and Book? Like, are they gonna, not to prioritize the romantic relationship, but I do want to support the wholeness of both of them. And last week I ended Trek Table by saying, I'm not sure Book should be hanging out with Burnham anymore, because I feel like he doesn't always get treated right. But now I'm like, oh, but he just got part of the root back. So I'm just curious. I'm just checking in this episode. How are you feeling about Book and Burnham?
Well, I agree. Here's the thing. It's tough because I understand at the end of last season, like, he didn't really listen to anything she was saying. And he was really on an emotional journey. He lost his entire planet. So you got to give him a little bit of, like, understanding. But at the same time, like, dude, you didn't come to me. We didn't talk about these things as a couple. You didn't allow me in. So I feel like there's a little bit of bruising in terms of that for Burnham, in my opinion. I feel like she really is struggling with the idea of, I am also the captain and I answer to the admirals, and you are now a convicted felon. Not that I too am not a convicted felon. I literally also have made my way back to, like, the good graces of everybody. But this is a whole 1,000 years later. and I'm a brat and reinvented myself. So you don't have the benefit of 1,000 years, my friend.
Mhm.
I will say that though, because she does have that experience, he does have some room, but she is also a person who's extremely guarded, who tries to do what she thinks is right for everybody and puts herself second. So I think it's really about like, can Book, who is a very emotional person, given that he is very connected to his emotions as a what is it, equation?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Quajanian.
Equationian, this is who she is.
Mm.
Burnham is not going to change. So either you accept the one-man show that is Burnham and are happy to be like the first gentleman, or like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know. Do I think that they would be good together? To be honest, I don't know that either, because it does seem like it's going to be a one-sided kind of thing. She is going to lead primarily the whole time, their entire marriage. Like, that's just who she is. So I don't know. I feel like I need her to open more.
Mhm. Mhm. I appreciate that. And I did a lot of that, so much of that. Claudia, I'm curious for you as you, I felt like last week at the end of Final Thoughts, I was like, I'm gonna go first because mine is so sad. And
No,
I was like,
I got more hope. I got more hope in this relationship. Here's okay. My opinion is complex because honestly, I'm not really into romance in my my sci-fi shows. I'm like, I mean, I like my characters to be coupled up, and I'm like, that's cute. But I'm like, please don't give me too many plot beats around this. I'll watch a romance for that. But this journey is part of Michael's leadership journey. Like Michael figuring out how to get through this conflict with this person that she created this beautiful relationship with, and coming out on the other end whole. That's part of their leadership journey. I was like, this episode fixed it for me because I was like, y'all spending a lot of time on the Book and Michael relationship, and I'm here for it. But also, this show is supposed to be about the captain, and it is. I feel like Discovery is always giving me how to be a leader classes. And sometimes the classes, like the lessons I'm learning are, oh, you have to have right relationship with yourself. You have to have like some of them are like, you need to figure out how to have right relationship with others. Some are, you need to have right relationship with yourself. And this episode was, it felt like it was not only about Michael's fear of failure, because we've talked a lot about how Michael holds herself to a very high standard and is not kind to herself. And that sometimes can cause conflicts in other relationships. And I go, oh, I think we just witnessed a gigantic growth moment for them as a character. And I'm so excited about the next couple of seasons. I have faith and hope for Book and Michael. Now that she had the archive therapy, the super fast Bajoran space book archive therapy, right there. I'm just saying.
And in the chat, there's agreement. Sci-fi queens are thinking, oh, I hope they get back together because if I can't have Books, somebody gotta have him. LOL. So yes, and Noop from DeVille also agrees. That's why the test at the archive was important, because Burnham was allowed to know herself and allow her fears, which included Book. So the reason that Book was the person she was dealing, she said it out to us, right? She's like, oh, I chose you because I have stuff to say to you. Okay, that's why you're here right now, because we have unfinished business and I have to talk to you. And so, yeah, dittoing on what you're both saying. And just, yeah, continuing to give us models of women of color leaders and like all of the things that we have to traverse and all of the things and the challenges and the ways in which we have to know ourselves. We want to be open. We want to be empathetic. At least that's the kind of leader I'm trying to be, and then trying not to second guess myself. And I'm trying to move from a place of centered leadership, but I don't want to come off with too much ego. Like just the unique balance of like what it means to operate in this way. Yeah. Thank you all so much. We've had a super robust thematics right now. And we've said a lot of wonderful things. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for your insights, reflections, and reactions, because that was thematics for for episode 508, Labyrinth.
We want to give a special shout out to the Trek Table friends assembled in the chat today while we were recording this episode. Y'all have been totally amazing. Thank you for your awesome comments. And hey, do you want to get in on our chats in the future? Join us next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time and 9:30 p.m. Eastern time when we will be talking about Star Trek Discovery episode 509. It will start streaming on Paramount Plus on Thursday, May 23rd.
And we are back with some signal boosts. And go ahead, Claudia.
We strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown women of color. Here are some resources that amplify and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers.
And it just so happens that the women of the world shapers and builders that we want to amplify, we're here in our chat today. We want to say what's up to the Sci-Fi Queens podcast. You can check them out on their YouTube channel. On their channel, they explore female characters in sci-fi television shows, movies, books, comic books, music, gaming, art, and any medium that a female sci-fi character is found. They will talk about it, as well as discuss real women in the sciences making a difference today. Their channel has it all from great interviews, sci-fi book recommendations, and other podcast promos as well. We invite you to go find them at Sci-Fi Queens Podcast on YouTube.
And if you know of a woman of color, content creator, community builder, or world shaper that we should amplify, please drop it in our chat or reach out to us on Instagram at Trek Table.
Totally. That's to you, Rodney. Yes, and we have found ourselves in this luxurious night of just engaging and talking about Star Trek Discovery. So grateful to have folks here. And we're getting ready to wrap up. And so we're going to start with our final thoughts. I'm going to go first. Again, I'll go first. And I don't think mine is as sad. I think my final thought on this episode is just really excited to see how this series is starting to wrap up, knowing that we're going to go to this last planet where Michael has some secret info, and curious about what will happen with Maul and if Maul and Book will ever be able to connect. And then just, curious. I think my final thought is like, oh, I can't wait. Like, I'm so excited. So it's kind of simple. I guess my last thought is I don't understand why this show is ending. Like, I know why, but I don't understand. It feels I have a lot of cognitive dissonance internally. So that is my final thought. I'm going to turn and come to you. Courtney, your final thought for this episode 508 Labyrinth.
Wow. My final thought is, hold close the things that are the memories and things that are of value, and like the archive and what it represents for their history, because it kind of reminds me of almost like the library of information that Discovery got and that is now their ship's computer. It almost felt like that's what it should have been there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it almost felt like that is where it kind of belonged, but I am glad that it's still a part of this journey, and maybe that's where it'll end up at the end of this journey. I know this isn't necessarily sad for me, but it might be for others in the chat. As a writer, sometimes you have to kill your darlings, and I really hope that Locke does not come back. And the reason that I'm going to say this, and I'm the first romance person, I want to see a good, I think Maul will have a better arc and growth if she learns how to exist as she is. He made his choice, however grandiose and not thought out it was. He made it. And if the progenitor's tech is used to bring him back, I feel like that would be a disservice to what they're trying to do, like with this science. And it almost goes against the progenitors and what they used it for, to bring back the dead. It's just not where it should be. And I think it's more about Maul and Book embracing that pain and learning how to move forward as, individuals and potentially find a new family.
And as you say that, just to connect to the open celestialness, folks in the Star Wars world, like that was the Bad Batch conversation about tech. Like, is he gonna stay dead and we're gonna grow from his passing, or are you gonna give us a fandom surprise and he's alive and secretly dealing with clones? And so I do appreciate that. And that's a lot. Yeah, I don't know, you're right, I don't know, sad, but like, ooh, yeah, actions have consequences, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that. All right, Claudia, I'm gonna come to you. Your final thought for this episode.
I'm so annoyed because y'all give me 9 or 12 additional thoughts by the time we get to the end. We've been talking about this for over an hour, and I'm like, can we go for another 45 minutes? So we talked this entire episode and we didn't really mention Maul in a big, gigantic way. We saw Maul doing some statescraft, and I was like, where has this Maul been the entire I've watched this character for 8 episodes, acting just a fool, making the worst choices, not trusting anybody. Thank you. Irritated. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. So like, why is Maul brilliant now? And also Maul's like, Locke believed in these things. Locke was like this. And I was like, the Locke I saw was like, I'm not sure about anything, Maul. Should we even be doing this ultra violence? I'm going to do random violence to Michael. It was just a hot mess. So I'm excited to see what happens. I think low-key, I was kind of hoping Locke would come back to life so I could see the Locke that they've been talking about, because I never saw that Locke on screen. But these are my real final thoughts. Here are my real final thoughts on this episode. Star Trek Discovery gives me everything I love about Star Trek. And I actually think this is tied to Michael Burnham's fear of failure and hero complex, right? Where Michael Burnham, the character, knows that in a meta way, she's not allowed to win unless she does every single thing for every single Star Trek fan. Michael Burnham has to do everything all the time, as Star Trek Discovery does. So every single episode is giving me awesome fight scenes, awesome fight choreography, gorgeous, really gorgeous looking special effects, kind of red meat for certain nerd demographics. And it's also giving me this progressive vision, these notes that feel like they speak to me specifically as a Star Trek fan. And I am sitting here, we've been mentioning all these other TV shows. I was thinking about The Magicians. We were talking about libraries and books and the show The Librarians. But the show that's coming to mind that this is reminding me of the most is that moment in Doctor Who where he says, I don't want to go. I don't want Star Trek Discovery to go. Don't go, Star Trek Discovery. So that's where I'm at right now. And spoiler alert for Doctor Who. We warned y'all. We warned you. They brought that doctor back. So maybe there's hope for a Discovery movie.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that is my hope. That is the torch I am carrying, is a Discovery movie. Yeah. Oh my gosh, all the things. Friends in the chat are also saying that they don't want the show to end either. Bunch of agreement. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're in this kind of conversation because we're engaged about this show, and I'm so grateful. We've had so much to say this episode, but those were our final thoughts for Star Trek Discovery, episode 508, Labyrinth. Yes. And here at the Trek Table, we like to end our show on gratitude, because this podcast would not happen without the village of folks who support us, including you, our friends in the chat, but also the people behind the scenes, the folks here at the table. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us at the Trek Table. You can get first looks at our questions, inside scoops, and more when you sign up for the mailing list at trektable.com.
Trek Table graphics are provided by our original graphics partner, Arthur Wong, and our new partner, Digital Click, a SoCal-based boutique marketing and design agency. Learn more about them at www.digitalclick.com.
Like and subscribe. Follow the Geekish Network on Twitter, IG, and YouTube for podcast subscriptions. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. Join the Trek Table Friday at 6:30 Pacific and 9:30 p.m. Eastern here on the Geekish Network.
You can also like and subscribe to us on Instagram at Trek Table or on YouTube at Trek Table. And you can find Trek Table podcasts on Apple, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts.
And finally, I just want to say thank you again to our Trek Table assembled today who held down this ritual. Thank you to Claudia Alec and Courtney Scott Wright. Just deeply appreciate you. Thanks to everybody in the chat. But Claudia and Courtney, just thank you so much for your insights today, your improvs today, and your thoughts as we look at this episode. I also want to say thank you, last but not least, to Rodney, who's our technical director, who pushes all the buttons and makes us go. So thank you so much, Rodney.
Trek Table executive producers, Allison De La Cruz, and our partners at the Geekish Network, Rodney Cahuto and Charles Bass.
Yes,
thank you.
For sure, for sure. And deepest gratitude to our content partners at Calling Up Justice.
Trek Table is a service mark of De La Projects, LLC.
Yes, yes. And we want to thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of the Trek Table, episode 54. We want to close out this ritual just by honoring all of the space that we were created. Thank you so much to our friends in the chat. And we just want to say we're going to be here for you next week. These last two episodes that are coming for the series finale for Star Trek Discovery. We're holding Trek Space for you. Till then, 509 comes out next Thursday, and then we're in the finale on 510. I can't believe it. So it's going to be May. It's going to end. I know it. All right. So we've come to the end of this ritual today. I so appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and take a closing breath. Yeah, let's close ourselves out. Take a breath in. And take a breath out. Don't worry. We're going to hold Trek Space for you till next Friday. We'll see you then.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah.